Hey everyone, DisturbedShadow here, back to continue on with my review of the Disturbed discography. Today we'll be talking about their second album entitled Believe, which came out back in 2002, so let's just dive right into this thing. So the first thing I want to mention is that this was the last album to feature Fuzz on bass, so I'll take that, sort of wanted to mention that because sort of like to mention interesting things like that, like band members joining or leaving, stuff like that. So like I just said, it's his last performance on the band, with the band. Anyway, jumping into the review, let's just jump through and go through some of the tracks as always. First, we'll start off with the opening track, Prayer, which is one of my personal favorite Disturbed songs. And it's just a really good way to set up this new album, because it's sort of a little bit of a change of style from their more nu metal style debut album, sort of keeping that alternative metal sound, but sort of taking it in a more hard rock direction. And this track, Prayer, really shows off that sound. That is still very much Disturbed, but a little bit different than what they did in the past on their debut album, The Sickness. It was just a really solid track all the way through. It's got a really catchy chorus, really sort of heavy riffs and stuff in the verses and in the bridges and stuff like that. And it's just all around a really good song, really soaring chorus, and really shows off David's vocals. It's just really awesome song all around, and it's just, I love this song to death. It's one of my favorite Disturbed songs, like I said. Track number 2, Liberate, which is another one of the singles off this album, which is holds the record for the most explicit song in Disturbed discography, with the use of motherfucker 19 times, which I just think is a funny thing that they just, I don't know, just funny how many F-bombs are dropped in this song. But it's a really solid track. Really great riffs, really alternation between David doing some more growly singing, more melodic singing, and some spoken word parts to mix it up. And in the bridge, he quotes passage from the Torah, which is kind of interesting. He's throwing a little bit of his Jewish heritage in there. It's just an overall really solid song. And I just sort of like the way it all comes together. It's heavy but melodic, and it really shows off what Disturbed can do. Track number 3, Awaken, which is another personal favorite off of this album. It's got this really catchy guitar riff that's sort of present throughout the whole track, where it sort of fades out a bit and lets the bass play the same progression of notes. And it's just sort of really great how the bass and the drums and the guitar all come together in this album. And then David does some really cool stuff on his voice, throwing in some of his signature vocal sounds, and an alternation of more sort of gruff singing and the more melodic singing that he can do, and sort of alternates between those different styles to create a really awesome track overall. I just really like what's going on with this track. Track number 4, Believe, which is another sort of melodic type of track. Very much shows off David's melodic singing, and then there's just some really great riffs on the guitars that Dan's doing. It's just another really solid track. I just love the way everything comes together on this album. On this track. Track number 5, Remember, which is the third single that was released off this album. It's another one that's a more melodic type of song. It's just got this really heavy guitar riff and some pretty interesting drum stuff happening, and then David's voice again takes the forefront with his amazing soaring vocals, and just comes together really nicely like every other track I've mentioned previous to this one. Track number 6, Intoxication, which is probably the heaviest track on the album. This is just another song with this just really heavy guitar riff. It's really fast-paced, and this has the most sounds from David, doing his signature vocal sounds with the and all that kind of stuff. I can't really do it. My throat is a little bit sore right now, but you know what I mean. And it's another really solid track overall. It's the shortest track on the album because it's a lot faster and heavier, but it's still a really solid track overall. Track number 7, Rise, which is another one of those melodic ones. This one has a really catchy guitar riff, and it's just really soaring choruses, soaring verses. Just really shows off David's vocal talent on this one. Track number 8, Mistress, which is almost entirely sung with a more melodic style singing, showing off David's vocal range, not just sort of the growly type of singing he tended to on the first album and parts of this one, where it's really showing off his higher range, and just a really solid track. And another one that has some really heavy riffs and bass stuff happening. It's just a really, really awesome track, like everyone on this album. There's not really a bad track on this album. Track number 9, Breathe, which is a song that sort of has this more technical. It's not really technical compared to stuff like technical death metal or like progressive metal bands, but compared to some of the other riffs on this album and on The Sickness, it's more technical. And it's just got some more melodic stuff happening on the guitars. It sort of shows that Dan is experimenting with different types of guitar stuff, not just the simplistic but heavily distorted riffs on songs from like The Sickness and from this album, where it shows that he can do some more melodic type of stuff and mixes up a bit. And it's just a really solid track overall. It's really great vocal stuff happening. I just really like the progression of this track, where when it progresses from the verse to the chorus, just like I said, it's got a really nice progression to it. Track number 10, Bound, which is another one that gets kind of technical on the riffs compared to some of the other stuff on the album, and it's just a really solid track overall. Track number 11, Devour, which has a lot of different and varied riffs throughout the whole song. It's just really great, interesting stuff. There's more melodic stuff and more pullback, simplistic stuff, and it's just really great guitar progression and really great vocal melodies from David again, and just really solid lyrical content too. And a lot of these tracks, I've sort of been neglecting to mention that the lyrics are a lot to do with like religion and politics to some respect, but it's mostly religious and personal stuff. Actually, politics sort of comes in on later albums. I don't know why I said that, but it's mostly just dealing with issues of religion and other personal issues, and just really solid songwriting for the lyrics. And finally, track number 12, Darkness, which is another one that's really strong lyrically, but it's a very interesting track compared to a lot of the other stuff that Disturbed has done, where it's a completely acoustic track. There's no guitars. I mean, there's no drums at all, no bass. It's just the guitars, but backed up by a cello and a piano. It's just really beautiful. Well, I flubbed my words there. It's a really beautiful piece of music, and just so much emotion behind it. And then adding on vocals, I mean, David's beautiful, clean vocals here. It's just so powerful. There's just so much emotion in this song. And this is a song that I showed to people because I know a lot of people are like, oh, Disturbed always makes the same song, and all their songs sound the same, and all their albums sound the same. But this song, nothing like anything they've ever done before. It's just completely acoustic, and it's just, there's so much power and emotion in it. And it's one of those songs that proves that Disturbed does, in fact, do things differently sometimes. And they produce amazing songs like Darkness. Oh, anyway, that wraps up my track by track. Like I said, all these tracks are super awesome for one reason or another. And it comes together to create a really awesome overall sound. Now, let's go and jump ahead to the band members themselves. We'll start off with David on the vocals. Like I've been saying constantly, his voice is amazing. And on this album, he really showed off an expanded vocal range that he didn't really show off on The Sickness. Where he does do some of those more rough types of singing, but he also does a lot of soaring, higher range singing, and just a lot of clean type of singing. There's no grit at all in his voice there. And of course, he always knows in his signature vocal sound effects that sort of make Disturbed stand out in that regard. So he's just doing an amazing job on this album, and it really shows off that he's got quite the range of vocals and different styles too, which is something he kind of gets criticized for not doing, but I think he does do it. Anyway, moving on, Dan Donegan on the guitar. Like I said, he's branching off and trying some new things with riffs, like songs like Devour and Bound, a little bit more technical, and he's throwing in melodic bits, and songs like Breathe and Devour and Rise, where there's a lot more melodic guitar playing. So he's doing a lot of interesting different stuff to keep things interesting. So he's doing a great job on the guitars. Fuzz, with his last appearance with the band, he's doing great stuff on bass. The bass is always turned up nice and loud. And while it is mostly just following along with the guitars in some places, there are a lot of places where it sort of takes the forefront. Like on Awaken, and on Bound, there's some moments where, and on Breathe as well, where the bass really takes the forefront, and you can hear that it's doing some different things, or just being turned up even louder than it is already, to sort of show off that he's doing some cool stuff on the bass as well. And finally, Mike on the drums. He's doing a great job as always. Like I said on the Sickness review, that it's not the most technical drumming, but it fits for what the band is trying to do. And again, with this album, it's sort of going a more mainstream hard rock approach to songwriting, where it really fits in with what they're sort of going with on the album. So he's doing a great job. And there are moments like on Devour and on Bound and on Breathe where he's doing a lot more technical stuff that he wasn't necessarily doing on The Sickness to keep things interesting. So he's also doing a great job. So overall, these four guys came together great. Another really solid album, which, as you might know, debuted at #1, which their first album didn't. It started their trend of every single album they've released since this has been debuting at #1 on the Billboard charts. And I have a feeling that Immortalized will also do the same thing, especially after such a long wait for this band to return. And anyway, that wraps up my discussion of the band members themselves. Now I'll just jump into some final thoughts. Like I said, it's an interesting progression from The Sickness, where they're sort of going in a little bit of a different direction to mix things up a bit and not make the same record again, which is funny because a lot of people like to criticize them for always making the same thing, but yet this album is very different from the last one. And it's just a really, really solid album, and it's something worth checking out, especially some of the more the like really well written singles that were released on this album, and really deep cuts like Darkness, which really shows off that they can do a really powerful and emotional ballad as well. So these songs in particular are the ones I'd recommend, but this is just a really solid album and definitely worth checking out. Anyway, that wraps up my review. So as always, I've been DisturbedShadow. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more of my reviews, and I will see you guys in the next video.